Well, hello to anyone who is joining me on this impromptu live stream. But I did want to actually address this because it has really actually made me wonder what the hell is going on. And so I thought I'd put it to you guys and see if you guys can figure out what the hell is going on, because it makes no sense to me. Now, I actually posted this in my group the other day when I saw them posting this or publishing this on all of the different platforms. Hi, Rochelle, good to see you here. Anyway, I thought, what the hell? It makes no sense. And so I started seeing them publish this on the 8th of July, which was Saturday. So I saw them publish it a couple of times. I saw a few different platforms, news platforms, publishing the story, and I kind of ignored it because, every now and then they'll publish these types of articles that never really eventuate to anything. And then I kept seeing it, and it literally was the top story in the science section of Google News repeatedly, like 2 to 3 days in a row. In fact, it's still the top story in Google News in the science section right now. So I would ask you guys to go and get onto Google News and have a look at the science section of Google News and see if it is the top story for you as well. Because again, it was just something that was really strange. So what's so strange, you ask? Okay, well, they're literally predicting a solar storm is going to hit our atmosphere, our upper atmosphere, our magnetosphere, on Thursday, the 13th of July, and it's going to cause auroras all across America. And I literally counted 48 different news outlets publishing this same article, literally word for word, because we know, guys, there's a ministry of truth. Okay. This is why you see all of these news articles basically being repeated over and over again across all the different news platforms, because the Ministry of Truth puts out what the news story is going to be for the day. They literally type it up and write it out, and then all of the news outlets repeat the same story. And when they want the masses, the sheeps, to see a particular story, they make sure that every single news outlet is publishing the same story. And this is what's happening with this story about this predicted geomagnetic storm on the 13th of July, this coming Thursday. Like, every single news outlet is running with this same story, and it is really very strange to anybody who has been observing space weather for a very long time. I mean, I have been observing space weather for at least the last 12 years. It's not just Ben Davidson that has been aware of the changes on the sun and observing the space weather and the behavior of the solar maximum. There are others that have also been observing these events for a very long time too. And interestingly, I did actually listen in to a couple of Ben Davidson's news reports over the last few days to see if he was going to address this very unusual prediction. And he didn't mention anything about it. And as I said, anybody who has just the basic understanding of space weather knows that there is no way that they can predict a solar storm on the sun a week in advance. I mean, they can't even tell us when we are going to have a severe geomagnetic storm a day in advance with any real accuracy, let alone a week in advance. And as you can see, some of these media outlets aren't saying it might happen. They are actually saying it is going to happen. I mean, some of them are saying you could see a geomagnetic storm, but some of them are literally saying you will see a geomagnetic storm this Thursday, the 13th of July. So move away from the city where there is no light pollution, so you will have a really good chance of seeing all of the auroras that this geomagnetic storm is going to cause and trigger. So what's so strange about it is that how do they know there is going to be a solar storm on the sun? Because we know geomagnetic storms are caused by either coronal mass ejections, which just happen randomly, or X flares, okay, solar flares, all right, which also just happen randomly. Okay, so the stronger the flares, the stronger the geomagnetic storm, and the same with the coronal mass ejections, otherwise known as CMEs. If there's a direct hit on our magnetosphere, then we get very strong geomagnetic storms, and those storms will cause auroras. But they don't know how to predict them. And we know this because they failed to predict the strongest geomagnetic storm that we've had in the last 6 years that happened on the 24th of March this year, where we were seeing auroras in places that have never seen auroras before because it was so strong. And they literally admitted that they couldn't have known that it was going to be as strong as it was, and they were saying it was a stealth CME, and they just didn't know that, you know, it was going to happen. So somebody please explain to me how they suddenly know that there is going to be a geomagnetic storm on Thursday, the 13th of July, that is going to cause auroras all across America. They are claiming to have knowledge of this 7 days in advance of it happening. It makes no sense, guys. And anybody that has, as I said, the basic understanding for space weather and knows the limitations that NOAA and NASA have in predicting space weather and these events. I mean, how many times do they even say that we are going to be hit with a CME and it never eventuates? I mean, they're wrong more than they're right. And it's pretty much the case more and more because they just don't know what the sun is doing anymore. The sun is exhibiting so many strange behaviors that they just don't know. I mean, they have CMEs that seem to be directed at our planet that either take days and days and days to actually reach us, if they reach us at all, or they get here ahead of time. You know, and then they make up some excuse for why their predictions weren't correct, you know, because they always have to seem like they are all-knowing. So I don't know if anybody who follows Ben Davidson is listening into this live stream or this consequent video. Perhaps you may want to ask him what he thinks about this prediction that NOAA have made 7 days in advance. As I said, the news articles were starting to be published on the 8th of July, or even I think the 7th of July. I think it was Saturday. And I waited a day before I actually, you know, mentioned anything because, you know, from time to time they do make these idiotic predictions about, you know, flybys with asteroids and, you know, there'll be a solar flare and, you know, there's all this doom and gloom, you know, that it's going to hit our planet. But this is literally 48 different news outlets on the science section of Google News saying the same thing, and it's been the top story of the Google News science section for at least 3 days. So they want the sheeples to see this. Okay, so I'll just go over a bit of what the article says, and then we'll go into a little bit more, information that really makes me question what the hell is going on, because it just doesn't add up. So this one is from the East Idaho News, and they say a solar storm forecast Thursday is expected to give sky gazers in 17 American states a chance to glimpse the northern lights, the colourful sky show that happens when solar wind hits the atmosphere. So again, they can't predict when solar wind is going to hit our atmosphere 7 days in advance, because the sun is turning towards our planet and coronal holes open up randomly. I mean, they don't know how to predict when a coronal hole is going to open up and the coronal stream is going to hit our planet. Sometimes there'll be a coronal hole, but it won't be directly facing us. We won't even have any effect from this coronal hole or the coronal wind. So again, this just doesn't make sense. The northern lights, also known as Aurora Borealis, are most often seen in Alaska, Canada, and Scandinavia. But an 11-year solar cycle that's expected to peak in 2024 is making the lights visible in places farther to the south. Yeah, only when there's been a geomagnetic storm, and a geomagnetic storm only happens after there's been, as I mentioned before, a coronal mass ejection or a solar flare, and they don't know when they're going to happen, which is why they have probabilities. And even if you go and look at SolarHam at the moment, the probability for solar flares is only just starting to increase a little, because they've identified a very unstable and quite large sunspot. So it just doesn't make sense. 3 months ago, the light displays were visible in Arizona. So this is the really severe one that we're talking about here, or that they're talking about, that nobody knew, nobody predicted. Okay. Making it the third severe geomagnetic storm since the current solar cycle began in 2019. That is absolutely incorrect. That is absolute disinformation, misinformation, because I've actually got some screenshots from the articles about the very severe geomagnetic storm that we had on the 24th of March that resulted in these auroras being seen in Arizona. And they were saying, this is from NOAA, that it was the strongest geomagnetic storm in 6 years. Well, I'm sorry, if it was the strongest geomagnetic, the third strongest since 2019, that would be 4 years ago. Okay, so they're literally just making shit up now, because we know that there are articles about the very strong geomagnetic storm that nobody predicted, nobody forecast. This is even like a day before. Like, they didn't know that it was coming and it was going to be as severe as it was. And, they're now saying that it was the third strongest since 2019. So what are the other two strongest ones? They don't say. See, we are just being gaslighted here, guys. They are gaslighting us now. Before they used to just literally put out information that wasn't it wasn't absolutely false. It was just that they used to omit certain bits of the information that would encourage us to make assumptions. Okay, that is how they used to work. Okay, so really they were being disingenuous, but they weren't outrightly being untruthful. Now they're just being untruthful. Okay, they're just literally being untruthful, and it's everywhere. I'm seeing it more and more. They just don't care anymore. Okay, and it's all escalating, and I'm sure you guys are feeling, especially you guys that have been awake since 2012, 2011. I'm pretty sure that you guys are feeling an escalation over the last few months now that you've never seen before or never felt before. Now, I know there's a few of you, or probably a lot of you, the majority of you, who woke up about 3 years ago because of the COVID card they played, okay? And it just basically shook you awake. I mean, you really had no choice but to wake up. I mean, it's only the completely brain dead that have chosen to stay asleep, all right? So if you've got even a little bit of common sense and ability to think independently and start questioning what's going on, you woke up 3 years ago, right? So you probably don't really identify how things are escalating as much as those of us who have been awake for 12 years have now and are now seeing and observing how events are escalating. Because things used to unfold very, very slowly. Now, this shit show is just at the level of insanity that I just can't believe we would even have, for 1 minute, thought it would be this bad back in 2011 and 2012 when we all started questioning what was happening, what was going on, and that we knew we weren't being told the truth, and that was something was not right with the system and with the reality that we were existing in. And to see the level of insanity now, and to see that the majority of humans are just going along with it as though it's all completely normal, is just mind-blowing to anybody that has been awake for over a decade. So believe me when I say that shit is escalating big time now, and it is in line with the changes that we are seeing celestially, with the space weather, with the supernova, with Betelgeuse, and also with the increase of volcanic activity. We've got a volcano going off in Iceland now. We've got the Azores Islands volcano that hasn't erupted since 1808, and it was in a state of unrest last year, and they were calling for evacuations. They were ready for it to erupt. It was going to erupt, and then it didn't. Well, that has just started experiencing earthquake swarms as well. So things are definitely escalating on the Earth changes front. And of course, that's basically pushing them into having to play out their script, because they're on a time limit, guys. They're on a time limit. That's what a lot of people don't understand. It's all a stage show. It's every single bit of it that we exist in right now. All the governments around the world are in on it, okay? They're all in lockstep for a reason. Even the ones that are playing the enemy, the part of the enemy, they're all in on the script, okay? And of course, they're very good actors. Sometimes they show us that they're bad actors because they are mocking us and they want us to know that it is a script, but we're all just too brainwashed, okay? Majority of mankind are just far too brainwashed to ever understand the level of deception that we're dealing with, okay? Most people who even claim to be awake don't have the ability to process the level of deception that we're dealing with, which is why they're still all caught up with the political shit show and the political circus. I mean, if you're still caught up in Trump and Biden and the left and the right and Republican versus Democrat, and you know, if you're still caught up in any of that, then you are not awake. I am sorry to tell you. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you. Okay? And shit is just going to keep escalating, okay? This genie is not going back in the bottle, all right? All of this gender confusion that is being enacted upon the younger generations now, that damage cannot be reversed. You do understand that. You do understand that even if Trump was to win office next year, and by the way, he is an advocate and a champion for that part of the community. He has admitted to that. But I know now that he is saying that, he's against all of this stuff, right? But just say hypothetically, and I don't really give a shit who wins because it doesn't matter. It's all heading down the same place regardless. But even if he or some other Republican took control next year, it's not going to fix what's broken. We have broken the children, okay? The children are broken now. They're broken from being isolated, from being vaxxed, from being masked, from being confused about their gender, from being confused about their sexuality. They are broken. There is no putting that back together and fixing that. That is going to be something that we have to live with. And that is also going to express itself continually, because we are going to see children struggling with mental issues, and there is going to be a lot of suicides. A lot of suicides. So prepare yourself for that. Prepare your soul for that and your mind, because that is going to be the hardest thing to have to deal with. So let's just wind it back a bit. Okay, so I went off on a bit of a tangent about the political shit show because it is connected to what is happening with the space weather and the escalation of the earth changes, which they are calling, of course, man-made climate change, right, to cover their asses, right, to cover up the fact that this is all a natural cycle. And here I go, I've just triggered the algorithm, and you can bet that I'm going to have the climate change banner underneath my video now. And, pretty soon my channel probably will be taken down. So that's okay. I mean, it all has to play out, guys. And you have to ask yourself that if things were normal, why can't you even talk about these things without the risk of censorship? That in itself is not normal. Okay, so let's just wind it back to what we're discussing here, all right? So the article continues that the Geophysical Institute at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks has forecast auroral activity on Thursday in Alaska, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Indiana, Maine, and Maryland. Auroral activity has also been forecast for Canada, including Vancouver, and light displays are expected to be visible overhead in Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Helena, Montana, and low on the horizon in Salem, Oregon, Bose, Idaho, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Annapolis, Maryland, Indianapolis, and that's according to the Institute. How do they know exactly where they're going to be? Okay, that's the other thing. You don't get to know that. Not only can they not predict when these geomagnetic storms happen due to solar activity, they don't know where they're going to actually happen. They can't pinpoint them. They can say, oh, low on the horizon over here. This is weird, guys. I mean, I just can't tell you how weird this shit is, which is why I had to do this live stream, because it was like, it is just so weird, okay? The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Space Weather's Prediction Center, so NOAA, so the US is getting in on this too. It's not just, the Geophysical Institute at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. No. NOAA is also saying that people who are wanting to experience an aurora should get away from city lights, and that the best viewing times are between 10 and 2. Like, so they're just pinpointing them down to a 4 hour window? Guys, this is weird, all right? This is weird. Okay, so I just wanted to go over now how the strongest solar storm in years to hit Earth, catching forecasters by surprise. Now, that was the article on Yahoo, the Yahoo News article, which I have got up on the pictures that I'm showing you, the screenshots. On the 27th of March, they reported that. Okay, so they admitted that they didn't know that there was going to be a geomagnetic storm. So how do they know there's going to be one a week in advance? How do they know what the sun is going to do a week in advance? They don't even know what it's going to do in the next 2 hours. Okay, they've had X-flares where they've literally said there's a 2% chance, because they'll give you percentages, right? That way they're never wrong, are they? So even with a 2% chance of an X-flare, if an X-flare happens, well, hey, they said there was a 2% chance of an X-flare. Well, that did happen. Okay, this year there was a 2% chance, or it might have been less than 5% chance, but it was single-digit chance of an X-flare. And guess what? There was an X-flare. Okay, the sun had gone very quiet, and it just let off an X-flare, and nobody was expecting it. Okay, this happens all the time, all right? So they cannot predict what is going to happen a day in advance, let alone a week in advance. Okay, it's absolute nonsense. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody who understands space weather at the most basic level, okay, knows that this is absolutely nonsense for them to try and say that they can predict what's going to happen within, on the sun in 7 days. Literally, also telling us that they know where these auroras are going to be and when they are going to be. I'm telling you guys, this is weird. This is very weird. Now, this is also why I find this really, really weird, okay? Because it's got to do with Elon Musk, of course, the front man for SpaceX, okay? Completely funded and created by the evil shit stains in power, right? All of these dudes, and I've said this before, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Branson, they're all characters, okay? They're all just playing their part in the script, okay? None of them are geniuses. They literally just took over the work of other people and bought them out, okay? And then became the front men of these tech companies. And of course, they needed front men for tech companies that own social media because, well, when we get censored, we can't blame the government, can we? Because it's private business who's censoring us, isn't it? So they can do what they want. I mean, it's their platform. It's a private business. Okay, so it gets them to deflect away from themselves when they play out all of this type of, censorship and all of these different operations that they're doing now, like this Skylink, all right? So we're surrounding the planet in a network of satellites, okay? And people really think that this is going to be for our benefit. Seriously? I mean, he's already contracting out these satellites to the US military, okay? But that's what it's going to end up being, all right? It is literally Skynet, okay? It is going to be watching out every single move, and they will eventually take over all of his satellites because he's going to go bankrupt. That's going to be part of the script, okay? He's going to go bankrupt. All the idiots that were convinced that buying his shitty EVs was, some type of genius move are going to literally end up with bricked cars because they're just not going to be able to get any updates. They're not going to be able to get any spare parts. They literally are dependent upon Elon Musk always being a billionaire and owning this car company. And he is going to go bankrupt. That is going to be part of the script. And so when that happens, forget about the cars. They'll just be written off. Look, the whole electric vehicle psyop is just total bullshit. There is not enough lithium. There is not enough lithium on this planet for everybody to go and move over to electric vehicles. Okay. The other thing, our electricity grids are so dilapidated, especially over in the US, okay? They will not be able to charge these cars all at once, okay, and draw down that amount of energy all at one time. They just won't be able to do it. They will not be able to handle it. This is verifiable information. I'm not just, making this up. You can go and research this for yourself, and I suggest you do, because anybody that believes in this clown show with Elon Musk is just literally being played for a fool. Okay, so don't be a fool. The EV thing, it's just a total load of bullshit. Okay, they can't ever be without fossil fuels because the energy that they are generating using windmills and solar and so-called green energy, it's called intermittent energy because it does not always generate electricity. Okay, it's called intermittent energy. All right, so they need a backup, an equal backup in fossil fuels at all times. All right, so you can never be without fossil fuels because it's the only thing that consistently ensures that we can have uninterrupted electricity. All right, so anyway, okay, let's go back to this idiot Elon Musk. I just needed to have my little rant about Elon Musk because I can't stand him. One of the most punchable faces in the whole of the universe as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, so we're getting this geomagnetic storm this Thursday, right, guys? The 13th of July. Well, guess what? Elon Musk is going to be launching another batch of his satellites on, guess what? The 13th of July. That makes no sense. Because you know why that makes no sense? Because last year, on the 9th of February, SpaceX lost 40 Starlink satellites due to a geomagnetic storm, and it wasn't even a very strong one. It was quite a weak geomagnetic storm, and they literally lost 40 Starlink satellites. Okay, again, I have the screenshot of that article. You can go and look up everything. Just Google it. You'll find the articles. I didn't post them underneath because I really didn't have time to go through all of them and get all the links. But if you want to follow up on this information, it's pretty easy to just get the titles and go and Google them. Okay, so I would suggest everybody do that if you want to go and, inform yourself with all of what I am relaying here. So it basically went on to say, and this is about the Starlink satellites that were lost due to the geomagnetic storm on the 9th of February 2022, that almost all of the Starlink internet satellites that a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carried beyond the atmosphere on February the 3rd won't reach their intended orbit. SpaceX has revealed that a geomagnetic storm that took place a day after the liftoff had a severe impact on the satellites, and up to 40 of them will re-enter or have already entered Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so why would you be sending up more satellites on July the 13th when everyone is being warned or being told that there's going to be a very strong geomagnetic storm that is going to cause auroras across America on July the 13th? I mean, it just doesn't make sense, guys. It just doesn't make sense at all. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Right, now, something else that was interesting and that was published on the very same day that all of these articles about this prediction of these auroras on the 13th of July started coming out on July 8th too. So this article was published by AOL, and it was in the science section of Google News. That's where I saw it. That's why I thought it was unusual and posted it in the Shift of the Ages group, because it was like, okay, why are they posting and publishing this information at the same time they're publishing other information about auroras next week? Well, the article's titled, Humans Once Triggered Auroras with a Nuclear Bomb. Yes, it's true. And the article goes on to say, on the night of July 9th, 1962, people across Hawaii witnessed an outburst of the auroras. Typically, it is extremely rare for the northern lights to glow as far south as Hawaii, but this wasn't a typical display of the celestial lights. The aurora was triggered by a thermonuclear bomb, codenamed Starfish Prime. The bomb was detonated above the Pacific Ocean at an altitude of 250 miles, around the same height as the International Space Station. Now, I'm not saying, okay, that they're going to nuke us next Thursday. Okay. I'm just saying it's very unusual that they're predicting with a week in advance that there's going to be auroras across America. And then they also publish a article about how they triggered auroras with a nuclear bomb. So I really don't know what's going on here. I mean, could they be utilizing some type of technology that they have to induce auroras? Yes, they could. I don't think it's going to be caused by a nuclear bomb. I think this is more to do with their psyops, more to do with them putting this, implanting this in our minds, seeding us with these types of thoughts and this information. But I do think it's very unusual that they are predicting with a week in advance something that can't be predicted. And they're claiming confidently that there is going to be auroras on Thursday, the 13th of July. So look, one of two things can happen. Nothing happens at all. We know that they do this. We know that they set us up to basically have us expecting that an event is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen at all. It's like this false prediction. Okay, they do it to us all the time. And it's so that when something does happen, when they do predict something is going to happen, it doesn't, it happens, So okay, I'll give you an example. So the Ukraine war, when that got triggered, remember when everyone thought it was going to happen and it never happened? And then when everyone thought it was going to, then they were all saying it was going to happen, and everyone's like, no, it won't happen, and then it happened. So, that's what they like to do to us, because, they try and play our gods, right? And so we all know that God works in mysterious ways. We never know what fate holds for us, okay? We never know what's going to happen to us tomorrow. We think that tomorrow is just going to be like yesterday. Our lives are pretty mundane. We can just go to work. We're going to do everything that we normally do. And maybe we get into a car accident. Maybe, we win some money. Maybe we, buy a house. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these things happen. I suppose buying a house doesn't happen out of nowhere, but things do happen to us. Usually negative, I have to say. Usually negative, out of nowhere. It's like they just, it's that that curveball that we just didn't see. Okay? And hits us up the side of the head, and we're like, oh, all right. Didn't realize that was going to happen. Now I have to deal with this in my life, this crisis, whatever. So they like to do the same thing, okay? So fate normally does to this because it shakes us out of our status quo, okay? The only way we grow as a soul is by being put in uncomfortable, challenging situations. Otherwise, we don't grow, Okay, so that's why rich people are such assholes. And people that normally have just been given everything their whole life, never had any struggles, never have had any challenges at all, perfect home life, great mother and father, all of that stuff. They are usually assholes, selfish, arrogant, and just not very nice people because they've never known what it's like to struggle or suffer. Okay, and normally you'll find this in your own life, when you meet people that are a bit down on their luck, someone that's not very rich, someone that is just, the average worker, maybe, bit of a hard luck story. They're always really nice. Normally you have a nice chat with them. They're really down to earth. You can have a chat with them. They're easygoing. Have you noticed that? They normally got the best character. I always find that the people with the least are the people that I'd rather talk to. Because in my position of slavery, I actually have many experiences with a broad range of society, from people that have a lot of money to people that don't have money. And I always find that the people that are just, the worker, just a blue collar worker that just, goes to work and pays their bills and saves money and just tries to, scratch out an existence, they're always the ones that have the personality that, you want to kind of engage with them because they can talk and they don't have any airs and graces. So, yeah. So this is why, normally you want to have a challenging experience with your incarnation, okay, with your current incarnation, because it basically encourages you to grow as a person. Okay, that's why it says, a rich person, like, it's easier for them to get through the eye of a needle, right? For a camel to get through an eye of I can't think of it off the top of my head. You guys know what I'm talking about. That is why. Okay, because it's very hard when you are given an easy incarnation to grow spiritually. Okay, so feel sorry for people that have money and that have an easy life, because they've actually got it tougher than you to understand themselves on a spiritual level and an ethereal level as a soul. Okay, I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying it's more difficult for them. That's their challenge, okay? That's their struggle. Our struggle might be, our car breaks down and we're up for all of this money, or our fridge breaks down and we're up for all this money and we've got to struggle to find it. That's our struggle, okay? So the reason I'm saying this is I just don't want you guys to think that because we have these crisis events in our life, that means that somehow the universe is unfair, because it all balances out in the end. Okay, that's really why I went off on this big tangent to tell you that. But I'm saying this because this is how those who have taken power over us also are working. They have become our gods. Okay, they have basically replaced the creator with themselves, and they're playing that part now. So that's how it's easy to work out what they're going to do in the end times, or at the end of this cycle, because it's not the end of the world, it's the end of the world as we know it. The planet is going to go on and on and on. It's us that's going to end. And so the reason we know what is approaching is that they are literally playing out their own version of prophecy. Okay, of biblical prophecy. So it's not really hard once you identify what they're doing to understand your enemy. And that's what you need to do. Everyone needs to work to understand their enemy. And so, as I said, I know them. I know the enemy because I've studied them for over a decade. Okay, and I know how they work. So that's why I know this is either going to not eventuate into anything. It's just this false prediction where it gets everyone hyped up. Though I find it interesting that no channels are really talking about it. You know, like that's how you can tell who the shills are. Because if you were really interested in space weather and you were questioning everything that they were telling us, why wouldn't you question this? Especially if your channel is dedicated to space weather. Why wouldn't you be questioning them trying to predict or claiming that they can predict auroras a week in advance, that they can predict a coronal and coronal wind or a geomagnetic storm? Because some of the articles said that there's going to be a solar storm. Okay, how do they know this a week in advance? If you were someone dedicated to seeking out truth and not trusting the establishment and their agencies, why wouldn't you be doing videos questioning this? So I'm going to continue watching these channels who claim to be space weather experts and who claim to be just interested in the truth because, you know, they want to help us and they want to be there to give us the truth when the establishment won't. Because I just find it interesting that it's not everywhere. I mean, normally back in 2012, when this type of information that didn't really make sense would, you know, be published on all these news platforms, you would have like 20, 30 channels doing stories about this, doing videos about this. Unfortunately, now 98% of all of the channels on YouTube are absolutely infiltrated, co-opted, were probably controlled opposition from the start. But a lot of the newer ones that have just been popping up in the last few years are probably absolutely controlled opposition from the start too. But we didn't have all that back in 2012. I really miss YouTube back then. I can't tell you how much I miss YouTube back then. It was so awesome. It really was a community back then. And we really were a group of people trying to seek out the truth and seek out answers and helping each other with research. And it was really awesome. It was, you know, such a great community that we had, but you just don't get that these days. So I would distrust anyone with like over 10,000 subscribers. Well, I've got over 10,000, but I've been doing this for 12 years. So that's why. And I'm pretty sure that most of my subscribers don't even watch my channel anymore. You know, it's just from back in 2012 when they probably thought I was interesting. Because they probably don't think I'm interesting anymore because I just, you know, I'm a doomer. I'm just negative. All I ever say is negative stuff. So it doesn't really matter. But all I'm saying, guys, is just be careful, you know. Anyone that's got a large following, you know, as I've said, you really need to hold the bar very high these days. There's so many disinfo agents out there. There's so many people out there willing to push people onto a false path, you know, being paid to push people onto a false path, that you need to hold the bar really high. So, you know, anyone asking for donations, anyone asking for money, that should be a red flag straight away. Okay, I'm not saying don't look to them for some information. I mean, I still take information from Ben Davidson, even though I wouldn't trust him as far as I could kick him, okay? But he does go through the data. That's what I look at. I couldn't care about his opinion because he's full of shit and he's a sellout, okay? And he's obviously controlled opposition and was from the start, okay? I mean, look at him selling tickets to his ranch now because, like, well, he's going to save you when this, you know, magnetic pole flip happens, you know, which he always says, like, is going to happen in 10 years, you know, 15 years, 20, you know, he just sounds like the mainstream with their climate change tipping point. You know, it's always some time in the future. It's close enough to worry about, but far enough not to be too worried about it. You know, you've still got time to prepare. So, look, I don't care. You guys who love Ben Davison, you can hate on me, dislike my video, whatever. I'm really do not care. I'm gonna call it as it is, and I really don't care anymore. I mean, look, I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to be, you know, politically correct, to walk on eggshells, to be nice to everybody, you know. And I've even, you know, the whole, and I'm probably going to do a rant video on YouTube and swear my head off, and I'll just put it at 18 plus. Because, you know, I used to worry that if I swore too much, people wouldn't listen to the knowledge and the information, and I would, you know what, if that matters to you, that I say an F word or a swear word, if that's going to deter you from looking at the knowledge that I've pieced back together over the last 12 years, then you're not intellectually mature enough to actually even process the knowledge anyway. Okay, so there's that, you know, like I realize it's like if people think that spirituality and knowledge equates to, you know, not swearing and talking in a certain way, then really the information is just, you're not going to understand it anyway because you're still caught up on appearances, okay? And that's what most people love and light, new age bullshit, because it's all about the appearance of spirituality, okay? There's nothing underneath. You can scratch the surface of it and there's nothing underneath it. It's all fake, completely fake. Some of the nastiest people I've ever met have been new agers who send me nasty little messages when nobody else can see. You know, on comments, on the comments section, oh, they're nice as pie. But as soon as they are behind closed doors and they think no one else can see them, they unleash with the nastiest attacks that I've ever had. So the New Age community, the New Age religion is just absolutely a load of bullshit, okay? And so these people are just all caught up with the appearance of being spiritual and namaste and love and light. And, you know, I just have to smile and be nice and always just say like lovely, loving, peaceful, sparkly things. And everyone will just, you know, think that I'm just so peaceful and spiritual. And, you know, it's just a load of bullshit. All right. So anyway, I've gone off on another tangent. So, there's that. Elon Musk is launching satellites on the same day as this supposed predicted aurora, these auroras on the 13th of July. So as I said, it could be that this, it's not going to happen. It's just this false prediction and everyone's thinking it's going to happen. But I don't know. It's a bit more weirder than that to me, because I see them when they put out these false stories that they kind of start building something up that doesn't play out. And it's a bit different than that normally. So, yeah, it's I don't know if it's that, guys. It could be. Look, it could be a psyop and it's just they're building us up for something and then nothing happens. But yeah, it could be them. They have some way of creating auroras and they're going to test it out. Okay? It could be that too. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, it is definitely not going to be solar activity, because there is no way in hell that these guys can predict solar activity 1 week in advance. There's just no way. I mean, they may get lucky and that just some way the sun fires off a flare or a CME on the 13th of July. But if that's the case, then they actually have access to technology in regards to predicting the sun's behavior that we don't know about. And if that's the case, why are they wrong every other time? Because literally anybody that follows the predictions on spaceweather.com, because they always predict it, you can go onto spaceweather.com or spaceweather.net, whatever it is. I've got it linked in my description under the video. And they will give you a prediction of, you know, oh, this CME just left the sun. There's a 60% chance it's going to be a glancing blow. It seems to be, directed away from the planet. Like, they always have these predictions, okay? And yeah, so why are they wrong all the time? If they do have access to some type of technology now that can tell when there is going to be a very large solar flare, in advance, like a week in advance, why are they always wrong? Okay, so that doesn't really make sense either. So to me, it seems like it might be a man-made event. They could have seeded the whole nuclear explosion caused a Aurora article just to freak some people out, okay? Like, freak some people out if they're seeing these auroras, as to whether it could be that. I don't know. But there's just no way possible with their current technology that we know about, okay, in them observing the sun's behavior, that they will know, when the sun is going to let off an X flare or a CME. It just happens. I mean, it's a random event. Okay, they have indicators in which they can tell there might be a likelihood. There might be a likelihood of a X flare. There might be a likelihood of a CME, but there's just no way they can tell with absolute certainty. They just can't do it. Santos Bonacci thinks that the Earth is flat, Thomas J. And if you think that the Earth is flat, then I'm afraid there's either only two options here. Option A, you are a fool. Option B, you are a shill. So which one is it? A or B? Because Santos Bonacci, something happened to him when he went to prison. And when he came out, he was talking all this rubbish about the flat earth. So I don't know what happened to Santos Bonacci. He used to be one of the best intellects available on YouTube and alternative media. One of a couple, actually. I could probably, count on one hand, if that. And something happened to him and he started talking all of this rubbish about flat earth. So don't bring your bullshit to my stream, because you will be removed, you will be blocked, okay? And you will be, your comments will be deleted, okay? Because I don't want this crap on my live stream. Go somewhere else. I mean, there's plenty of other live streams where you can go and speak this shit with other people, okay? This isn't one of them. And if you're a shill that's just happened to see some of the words that I've used in my title trigger some algorithms, and you found this live stream, because I don't know who you are, I've never seen you before, then you can pretty much leave and go and try and brainwash somebody else with all of this bullshit, because it's not going to work here, mate. All right, been around here for a very, very, very long time, probably a lot longer than you, okay? So, as I said, I really hope you're just not an idiot, okay? Because if you are, then I don't think this channel's for you anyway, mate, because I don't think you're going to understand even 1% of what I talk about and discuss on my channel. So, another article that I found was quite interesting, and I thought I would just finish up this live stream with telling you about this article because it plays into, or it connects into, the live stream I did about the black hole sun and the other events, the other space or the other celestial events, interesting or significant celestial events. Sorry, I don't quite remember the title, but it was in regards to Eric Dollard and what he was saying about the sun and what they really know about the sun, but they don't tell us. And so when I saw this article about Elon Musk's satellites and how they're currently polluting the wavelength bands that are supposed to be protected for radio astronomy, and they're preventing radio astronomers from actually engaging in radio astronomy, I thought it was really interesting because of what Eric Dollard said. Now, this is from the article about these satellites of, Elon Musk's satellites and how they are polluting these wavelength bands. And it says, according to new research, the electronics on board SpaceX's Starlink satellites are leaking low-frequency radio waves separate from their allocated downlink bands in a way that could impact our ability to perform astronomy. Okay. And are you agreeing with me? That no, I might be aggro and I might have a hair trigger when it comes to that shit, and I admit I do. But if you'd been in my position for the last 12 years having to put up with this bullshit, you'd do the same thing, okay? I would guarantee any of you who think that I get aggro and that I, have a hair trigger and, lash out at people, well, have you been stalked relentlessly? Have you been sent messages? Have you been befriended by people who then turn around a few months later and end up being just some weirdo that was just pretending to be your friend, so they could infiltrate your inner circle? Have you been hated on constantly, called names, had videos made about you? Because I have, okay? So I would say, yeah, 12 years, mate, only. Yeah, well, show me your channel, Thomas. Let me guess, you got what, 15 years of research on your channel? I bet you when I click on your channel, you probably got nothing on there. It's probably completely empty, isn't it? Or maybe a few gaming videos. Okay? So, I really don't care, okay? I'm not here to... I'm just getting rid of this idiot. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to find his channel and just block him. I'm over it. He wasn't saying that. He's obviously a shill. Germ, aggro much? I was agreeing with you. Oh, really? But then, his channel is completely empty, right? His first words were that all space is a psyop, okay? And then he starts talking about Santos Bonacci after he says all space is a psyop. But then he was just, when I actually called him out as a shill, oh, I misunderstood him. See how they work? Yeah, piss off, Thomas. Not interested, mate. Not interested. Gone. And this is what happens. Rochelle says, you beat me. This is what happens. So what they do, right, is there's obviously algorithms that get triggered when there's certain live streams and videos that are uploaded with certain phrases or words in them. And that's why you just get them just showing up on your live stream, okay? These randoms, they're shills, they got empty channels, and then they just start interjecting in the conversation. They normally chatter. They drop lots of little sentences or a few words. Sometimes they put a lot of doubt into silly questions that disrupt. I mean, look, when you've been doing it as long as I have, you can easily identify them. It's a little bit harder when you don't know what to look for, but I do, because as I said, I've been putting up with this shit for 12 years. And I'm not here to play a little violin and say, poor me. Oh, I've been putting... I'm just here to say, look, okay, sometimes I'm quick off, hair trigger. Someone says something, I might take it the wrong way and slay, and I've done that before. And if I do that accidentally, I always apologize to the person, okay? And I always reinstate them. If they message me later and they say, look, you just, I wasn't meaning that, you misunderstood me. Or sometimes I will just realize that I've misunderstood them. I'm like, oh God, I misunderstood them, right? I will always say sorry, okay? But I just want you guys to understand that when you have to constantly be on guard for for this shit all the time, all right, that you do have a hair trigger. It's just one of those things. So I apologize if I slay too quickly. And sometimes I take people out and I do it accidentally. But as I've said, I apologize to them, I reinstate them, and, you know, and hopefully they understand it. But this guy here, he is an absolute shill, okay? He's got all the hallmarks of a shill. So, so why I thought, like, let's go back to what I was talking about and forget about that idiot. So, according to the new research, as I was saying, it's interfering with radio astronomy. Now, the reason that I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to share this with you, is if you go back to that video, Black Hole Sun, and what Eric Dollard said, I'll just read you a part of what he said, and maybe we can connect some dots here about why they would be using Elon Musk's satellites to interrupt radio astronomy. Now, look, there are lots of amateur astronomers out there, especially radio astronomers. Just like there's ham radio enthusiasts, okay? There's radio astronomy enthusiasts too, okay? It doesn't take rocket science, you know, diplomas and doctorates and whatever to be an astronomer and to engage in radio astronomy, and even, you know, ham radio, which can also be used as a way to basically identify changes in our upper atmosphere, okay? And there was an article, and I actually have put that on another live stream I did too. But anyway, this is what Eric Dollard said about radio astronomy. He said, the sun controls all the frequencies. If you don't know what the sun's doing, you don't know what frequencies to use. That's why RCA, Radio Corporation America, started radio astrology. You have to know what the sun's doing, and the planets tell you what the sun's doing. RCA gave me the equipment, Sonoma University provided me with the place to do it, and the cosmos provided me with the planetary alignment. I was the guy with the equipment. I studied the whole event over a couple of years, that the whole solar cycle built into this alignment. So he's talking about an alignment that happened, I think it was back in the 1980s, and there was a book that was written about how these alignments have an electric magnetic interaction with the sun and with our planet. And he basically was claiming and supposedly did show evidence that this alignment caused the eruption of Mount St. Helens, or Mount St. Helens. So I just find that interesting. I find it interesting that Elon Musk's satellites are interrupting radio astronomy, and you know, we now have we have Eric Dollard, who was saying that they were actually getting him to research into, you know, the planets and their interaction with the sun using radio astronomy. I mean, I don't know, guys. Just seems like very, very coincidental that these things have a connection. So anyway, well, that's pretty much it. I did just want to bring that to your attention about this coming Thursday, the 13th of July, that they've predicted a week in advance that there is going to be an aurora, okay, or auroras across the United States, okay, into areas which may not normally see auroras, and that they are suggesting that they can predict the sun's behavior 1 week in advance, to the level of not only knowing when, you know, where these auroras are going to be, but when they are going to happen. So again, guys, I don't know. I don't know. Is it just a psyop? Are they just, you know, putting out this information, getting us, you know, to basically expect an event to take place and the event doesn't happen? Or do they have some way to artificially induce auroras in our atmosphere, and they are going to test them on the 13th of July between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.? Well, all we can do is just keep observing and keep watching. And I'm just showing with these SolarHam updates too that SolarHam have not predicted any CMEs, have not predicted any geomagnetic storms. Neither has spaceweather.com. I've also taken a screenshot of the spaceweather.com page. They have not predicted any solar activity that is going to trigger auroras on Thursday, the 13th of July. And as I said before, if anybody follows Ben Davidson and you want to ask him about this, I would be interested to hear his reply. Now, I would not mention me, okay, because he has a bit of a meltdown when I get mentioned, okay, it triggers him. So don't mention me, just ask him out of the blue, why is NOAA predicting with a week in advance that there are going to be auroras across America on July the 13th between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. I'd be very interested to see his response, and I think that that would be very telling with what he responded with, if he responded at all, because I would probably think that if he's not even actually addressing this in any of his news updates, that he would probably ignore that question unless it was asked by multiple different people. So anyway, it doesn't really matter either way, because we will find out on Thursday, the 13th of July, what is going to take place between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. But now you know. Something weird, and it is weird, even if nothing happens, it is weird that they are trying to make us believe that they can predict solar activity a week in advance, and solar activity that is going to cause auroras across America, like very strong auroras across America. I mean, it just doesn't add up, guys. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, now I am going to continue with the decoding of the Gospel of Thomas. I was actually going to do that this week, but when I saw this really strange prediction, I just thought I had to address this and bring it to your attention. And so I will try and do a live stream tomorrow night. So that's going to be my time tomorrow night. But if not, if I don't get to do the live stream tomorrow night in regards to the decoding of the Gospel of Thomas, I will definitely do one next week, because we need to start getting back into that. And hopefully no more weirdness happens between then, because there is a disclaimer, okay? The disclaimer, just down the bottom in little writing. If anything else really frickin' strange happens between now and next week, I may have to do a live stream about that instead. So just know that that could be the case. But anyway, I am very interested now to see what happens Thursday, the 13th of July. Well, I hope everyone's been well. I am going to leave it here for now. Thank you for moderating, Rochelle, and thank you for everyone that joined the live stream. Well, I'll leave it here, guys. And as always, peace out.